What's up, everybody? Coach Stefan here. I got Coach Ryne with me. Say what's up.
What's up, guys?
So he's our assistant coach for Pursuit Online, strength coach. Awesome dude. And I thought, because I know you can't see it, but he's pretty jacked, that it would be a really good person to bring on and talk to you guys about how you're going to gain strength and muscle without getting body fat. To give you a little bit of background, Brian's been training for well, actually, you give a background on yourself. That way people kind of know who you are, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been a combination of like a strength conditioning coach and personal trainer for probably about the last 8-9 years. Worked primarily in the private sector with a lot of like athletes ranging from Olympic to just like youth athletes. The last couple of years, I've been more into the personal training, more general population, just moms, dads, and then doing like a lot of primarily hockey, lacrosse, but train all athletes. Mm-hmm. So, and then now I'm out here hanging out with y'all.
Yeah. So he's humble too. He's very educated. He has his master's in exercise science area, and yeah, wealth of knowledge. And so I'm going to give you guys just some basic tips. It's going to be a little bit conversational, but don't worry. I will be typing some stuff. If you've seen any of our weekly trainings, I'm not a very good typer, but I do a lot of that. Right. So this is just going to be based on the conversations we're having, but you guys will have some takeaways with some very tangible things. So don't go anywhere. Don't just get past this. If you are wanting to know, hey dude, how do I get stronger? I mean, and gain muscle, who doesn't want to look more jacked, but I don't really want to gain body fat. So I'll start off by telling you, for like the first, I don't know, like 10 years, I didn't do cuts and bulks. I think I was so afraid. Like, okay, so I grew up like an athlete, but I didn't have abs. Okay. So once I got abs, I was like, I'm never letting these go. I was so afraid of getting fat. I knew that you were supposed to kind of like bulk and cut, but I didn't want to. So I just kind of lifted, and I wish I would have probably done, hindsight 2020. I wish I would have done a more aggressive bulk like earlier on. Basically, you're in a caloric surplus, right? This is your maintenance. A bulk means you're eating about, I don't know, roughly 500 calories more than you need to be at a maintenance. And a cut is 500 calories less. So very easy for you guys to see. So let's just type that out. So you can see I have a maintenance, M-A-I. That's nice, but M-A-I. Maintenance, and then we do a cut. So you guys understand this. And this is important to understand, because a maintenance, I'm just going to give you guys, this is not the calories I do, but let's just say 2,500 calories is your maintenance. Okay. So your cut is going to equal 2,000 calories, right? As you could tell, that's 500. And then your bulk would equal 3,000, which is kind of a lot. But basically I stayed here for a very, very long time. Right. And this is going to be comprised of your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, right? If you look at this, we'll just, your fats are about like 9 grams or 9 calories per gram. Carbs and fats are protein. So you understand where the macro breakdown is. Okay. And then don't worry, we won't do too much science, but I want you guys to understand that. Okay. So 2,500 calories, they're comprised of a certain amount of grams, right? Of this. So whatever that is, I'm not even going to do the math with you, because this would be a certain percentage of each of these, but you need to understand that when we're talking about calories. Okay. This isn't going to be just nutrition either, but just so you know. So for a long time, I stayed here, right? I might have had some days where I was 3,000. I might have had some days where I was 27. I might have some days where I was 2,000 or 22. So it's kind of all over the place, but I bet if you average it out just based on like the size, I basically did a body recomp. And what that is like, is my weight actually didn't change, but I looked way more jacked because I'm trading muscle for fat. For example, you might know somebody that's like 180 pounds and then another person that's 180 pounds and they look way, 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 way different. So for a long time, I did this and it served me well, but it took a long, long time to get to the point where I was like, oh, I have some muscle. I don't know, Ryan, did you ever like, when you first started like lifting, did you do a bunch of cuts and bulks or maintenance, or what would that look like?
What I did when I was like, I started out a little bit skinnier. So I remember like when I first started training back in high school, I was probably like 150 sophomore year. And then I knew like all my coaches for sports were like, hey, you got to get a little bit bigger, got to get a little bigger. So I ate as much as I could and I just trained as hard as I could. So I ended up being around 170. And that was, I guess, like basically like my only bulk that I really did. And then I've been about 170, 180 for like the last 10 years, just body fat differentiating in between.
Sure. And I love that you say that, because a lot of people think like, and this is for people that don't use performance enhancing drugs, right? Like that you're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and stronger. Like it doesn't work like that. It's the law of diminishing returns. Your body will hit kind of a peak weight. For you is around that. For me too. I was like, I mean, I fluctuated between like 170 and 180. I even got up to like almost 190 when I was deployed to Afghanistan. I didn't look that good. I ate a lot. Like I was purposefully trying to bulk, but generally like my weight since high school, same height. I don't think my height's changed. And I was like 160s and now I'm like 175. So like 15 pounds. If you look at the difference, you're like, oh, wow. And, you know, I've taken creatine and kind of had some like roller coasters with like size and different physique performance, but really it's a long-term body recomp, right? Like the more years you've been lifting, for you, you've been lifting what, like 15 plus years, long time?
Probably like seriously, probably from sophomore year of high school until now I'm 31. So 15, 16 years.
Yeah. And I'm like 17 years, kind of the same thing. I'm just a couple years older. So yeah, I mean, so a long time, but I bet you, for you, it was like around year, what, like 6 or 7, where you're like, oh, I kind of hit my peak physique. I don't know if you had that or you just kept getting in better shape. Or...
I remember like just feeling, well, mine was mostly sports performance. So I remember like just trying to keep getting bigger because that's all my coaches wanted, because I'm a little shorter guy. And so I hit about like 185 one time, probably like my senior year of high school. And I was like, dude, this is too bulky. I don't move very well. And I just wanted to be able to be more mobile and also be strong. And so I've kind of like navigated from basically 185 down to 175, 180. And I feel better. And I feel like I'm more lean and I'm still the same strength.
Right. So I put right here, bulk generally, and I'll say this is just general, can equal you feeling like slower, sluggish, higher performance. But I know you're like, okay, cool. I want to know how to actually gain muscle. So here's the biggest thing. When you gain muscle, you do probably need to be in a caloric surplus. You can do a maintenance and gain muscle like I did. It's just going to take a really long time because you're not giving your body, just think of these as like workers, right? Like you have 2,500 workers to build something, to build a house. If you give yourself 500 more workers, do you think you're going to build the house quicker? Like for sure, right? Now, those workers are going to create some more debris, aka fat. That's like the best analogy, I think. Like there's going to be a little more like stuff on the job site, more people using the restroom, whatever. There's a little more things coming with it, but it does get built faster and probably honestly a better, stronger house. You could do it with 25 and you'll have less trash and leftover stuff, aka fat. But it just is going to take a long time. And that's why I think people do it. Now, again, I didn't want that. I was so scared. I like had this time where I kind of got into like fitness modeling in the military and I started to get lean and I'm like, I don't want to lose this. But I honestly wish I would have done a little more of a bulk. Now you don't have to do 500 calories. Some people do 800 or 1,000. I think a 300 to 500 calorie range, is like pretty good for most people, to do a bulk. Now, when we do programs, so now, you know, if you're going to increase your calories, it's going to be 300 to 500 calories, right? If you want to do a bulk. So understand that. This is super generalization because obviously macros and certain calories should be individualized, but you have to go in a surplus. The next thing you need to be is like more volume, usually. So what is more volume? That could be more reps, more sets, more time under tension. That's what that stands for. It doesn't matter. It's just like stressing your muscle more, because more, for the most part, okay, not always, but more equals more adaptation, right? So the more you give your body within reason, okay, you can't just go do 100 sets and expect it to grow more, but more usually equals more adaptation. So if you're like, hey, I'm doing at a maintenance, right? I'm going to be doing most of my workouts. I'm doing 3 sets of 12 reps. Cool. Now you could increase your weight, but increasing your weight, it can cause muscle growth, but usually increasing your volume is better because that's more hypertrophy, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm doing 3 sets of 12, let's just say this is squat and I'm doing, 100 pounds. You doing 3 sets of 12 at 150 pounds, it could create muscle. That is more tension, time under tension, and it's just more tension, right? In general, it's going to break your muscle down more. but increasing the weight, and it will get you stronger, but it doesn't necessarily always correlate to more muscle. I think you would maybe be better saying, hey, I want to do the same thing. But this time I want to go to 5 sets, big increase. But this is more volume. So this is more sets. This is more reps. And then let's say you slowed the tempo down a little bit more. Now you have more time under tension. So all this means more volume. And then you got to think, like if you said 5 times 12 times 100, like whatever that is, I'm not good at math, right? But if you're just doing the math right here, the total amount of weight that you're lifting, usually in a 7-day period, but sometimes in a session too, is more beneficial. I don't know if you feel like, I mean, maybe I'm way off, but I feel like sometimes you're trying to gain muscle, more volume and slowing it down is better than just increasing weight.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at it like a percentage, right? So 12 reps is going to be a certain percentage of a 1 rep max.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing 3 sets of, say, 12 reps is, 68%, and you're going to do 5 sets of that to get more volume and to like get more hypertrophy, you're going to have to essentially build more muscle fibers and recruit more muscle motor neurons. And that's going to help increase like your muscle mass.
Yep. So hypertrophy, and maybe I'm a little bit off, but it's like what, 65 to 85% of your 1 rep max relatively?
Yeah. Usually it's like anything from 8 till about 12 to 15 reps.
Yeah.
15 getting close endurance, but.
Sure. And you'll hear of this word a lot too. Hypertrophy, right? So this word right here basically just means muscle growth. We talk about it a lot. Why? Because a lot of you guys say, I want to look good naked. Cool. What does that mean? Well, I want to be a little more muscly. I want to be leaner. This is your best friend. Performance is not necessarily correlated to aesthetics. In fact, I mean, there's always carryover, but they're very different style of training, right? Like you said, you did sports performance. You just want to be an animal in the field. I know people that are animals on the field or whatever sport they play. They don't look that good. They don't look that good in the bathing suit versus there's bodybuilders that what most people would be like, oh my God, you're such an aesthetic physique. Can't run 2 miles without dying. So, like there's a big carryover. So you guys need to understand that. Basically, when you're doing a bulk, and just bear with me, you can pause this, you could take notes, or I mean, it's live, so you can't pause it, but you could come back and take notes. So you're probably at a maintenance right now. If you're not, you're like, dude, I'm getting fatter. Okay. So you're in a bulk, maybe not purposefully, but you probably need to find out what your maintenance calories are. You want to increase relatively 300 to 500 calories, which I put right here. You're not necessarily going to get slower, but you usually feel a little more sluggish, but your performance should go up. You should get stronger and you should be able to lift more weight. You're eating more, right? You're putting more fuel in the tank. The engine should be able to perform more, right? Like that's kind of the idea. Basically, you do want to do some type of hypertrophy training. If you're newer, it might look something like this, right? 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps realistically. If you're pretty trained, maybe you can go something where you're doing like 5. Most of the weight is going to be 60 to 85% of your 1 rep max. If you don't know what that is, you probably need to do some testing to figure out what that is safely, which we're not going to dive too much in. But let's say you feel like, hey, this has been challenging me, but I'm plateauing. Instead of changing up every little thing that you're doing, because I had a comment on YouTube and he's like, oh, just change everything. No, just increase your volume and see if that works, right? You're probably not going to be able to do as many exercises if you want to spend the same time in the gym. Maybe you're doing 4 chest exercises, or this is legs, right? So you're doing 4 legs exercises. Maybe you're only doing 2, but now you're doing 5 sets of 12. So you're breaking down that muscle tissue a little bit more. And then the more you do, the more adaptation requirement you're putting on your body, right? I'm putting more stress on you. Now, you do need to make sure that you're having enough like sleep and water and all the basic health things to kind of recover. But I would say my biggest takeaway from like not gaining fat, okay, because that's really what this training is about. I think you can gain muscle and strength, and these are different, right? Strength is a little bit different than muscle, but a lot of times, especially in the first couple of years, these go hand in hand. But if you don't want to gain a lot of body fat, guys, usually like higher volume, high protein, and we'll just put some little notes down here so you understand. So I know there's the nutrition side. Most of the not gaining body fat, right? Without gaining body fat comes from nutrition. And for me, it's like higher protein, usually, that's not spell higher. There you go. 1 to 1.3 grams per pound of lean desired body mass, which means you need to find out like how much you actually want to weigh with the body fat percentage. So if you're like, I'm 200, but I'm 30% body fat, you don't eat 200 grams of protein. It's different, right? You want to know what your lean desired body mass is. And then I would say you want to eat more whole foods. And this is honestly pretty basic stuff, but just so you guys know. So eat whole foods. And then I would just say, and this is maybe, I would love to get your feedback on this. For me, and this is more of a training. I actually made sure that, let's see if I can get this into the training, because I want you guys to get confused if you screenshot this. I actually like added 1 to 2 days of actual cardio, because I think a lot of people do a bulk and they're so afraid of like, well, if I'm at 2,500 calories and I want to go to 300, but now I'm doing cardio, I just burn those calories. Yeah, you need to eat more, because and I don't want to get too much in the science. This training would be really long, but you could always ask in the comments. There's a lot of like other physiological adaptations that happen when your cardio gets better, but basically you just process things better and your body becomes more metabolically flexible, which means it can use stored body fat as energy. It's more efficient. So this cardio for me, okay, you can work up to this. For me, when I want to bulk, but also stay lean, was anywhere from like a 3 to 5 mile run. You don't have to, you can do incline walking on the treadmill. But the thing here, I'm not jogging this. I'm trying to get fast. If you ever looked at sprinters, like high level sprinters, pretty muscly people. So they don't want to weigh a lot because they're trying to go from point A to point B. But for you, you're probably not a sprinter. You probably don't care. I basically try to run this like at a, zone 4, really high heart rate, and just get faster and faster. I didn't want to do distance running because I didn't want to get smaller. I just became more efficient doing this. And honestly, it helped all my lifts go up, because if you're doing 5 sets of 12 on an exercise, your heart is beating, right? And if you don't have the cardio, it's harder to push yourself out. And in fact, I've trained a lot of clients that will do 5 sets of 12. They can't make it through. They're like, dude, I'm dying. You have no cardio, right? You're on this like huge bulk. I don't know. When you don't do a lot of bulks, but would you suggest people adding like some form of cardio?
You have to increase the stimulus. So if you're trying to bulk, you're going to have to train harder. So like if you don't change your programming and you do the same 3x12, but you just add more calories, that's where you're going to gain that body fat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like specifically when I try to gain more muscle mass, when I'm adding more like calories in, I do a couple days of sprinting on those, like the assault runners or any of that. It's going to be like high intensity cardio, not that steady state.
Right. Exactly. Like steady state's fine. You see these bodybuilders do it. Doesn't count. They're on all types of stuff that helps them stay lean and big at the same time, which is contradictory to human anatomy. But right here, right? 300 to 500 calories, but you got to put it to use. So more stimulus, more volume, right? And this could be in your cardio too. I just felt like, and I know what you guys want. I know what you want. We've coached hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. You want to be jacked and shredded, right? Now, you don't have to do this at the same time, but I've seen people, body scans that show scientific $12,000 scales, okay, considered medical devices where people step on, and within our program, they literally lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time, within the same week, within the same 2 weeks, within the same month, within the same couple months. Their graphs look like this in the best way possible. Body fat's dropping, muscles increasing. Really hard to do. Or that's the best case scenario. The other case we want is this: muscle increasing, body fat staying the same, which is also challenging. It can be done. I'm not saying it's the most effective way to get biggest the quickest, but for me, I wanted this. I wanted to gain muscle. I want to get strong. I didn't want body fat. And so for me, it was increasing my volume. Now, when I was doing this, and I know I said I would talk on the nutrition, which I will in a second, I was training about 5 days per week. Now my training was a little bit different. This was mostly lifting. And I know this seems like a lot, guys, but if you've looked at my physique, like that's the physique I wanted to go towards: jacked, shredded, ripped, athletic. And so I actually added in these cardios on the days of lifting. You don't have to. I actually used to do a 4-day split and then run on the other 2 days. So it was 6 days a week, but this is all I would do: just the run and stretching, which really doesn't take me that long. Okay. It's under for me, it was like under 45 minutes or an hour. Like it's not a lot. Right. and I still was letting the rest of my body recover. So you can definitely do that. As far as nutrition, it's super easy. This seems elementary, but it's a promise. So basically, this is all I did. I increased my protein a little bit. I already told you about the calories, so you know that. But from that, I increased my protein, made sure I got probably closer to the 1.3 grams. So for me right now, I'm eating like 175, 180 grams. I was eating closer to like 190 to 200. It's hard to overeat on your protein. If you overeat on your protein, it's an anabolic macronutrient, so you're not going to get fat. If you're not overeating on other calories. I switched almost all my diet to whole foods. I cut out protein powders. I cut out everything, which I know seems weird because the whole industry is like, oh, do your mass gainers and stuff like that. If you eat like rice, potatoes, beans, steak, chicken, that's what you bulk off of. Like, usually I do a little bit lower fats and I just do a lot of carbs and protein. Like, and that's why the whole bodybuilder like chicken, broccoli, rice. Yeah. It's like really lean meat and carbs. So I think that was probably the most beneficial thing for me. And because your performance increases, right, your output, you need more carbs because that's a direct energy source. And then lots of water. I would say 1 gallon for me per day. I usually try to hit this, but when I'm bulking, I for sure make sure, because your body's made out of water. You're trying to create new things, right? Like new muscle. And I'm trying to get rid of fat. And a lot of that process happens through like peeing out and excreting stuff too. So this is probably the biggest thing that I did. And then I won't get too much in supplementation. I don't know if you have something to add to this, but.
No, I mean, especially if you're trying to like body recomp, all the whole foods, the best way for that is just going to be, it's going to mitigate your appetite, right? So you're eating heavy, like you're going to get more full off 100 grams of carbs of rice versus 100 grams of carbs on a protein shake. I don't know about you, but every time I would have like a protein shake or I'm trying to gain, I'm still hungry after that protein shake. It's like,
oh yeah, dude.
It's good for 20 minutes, but give me an hour and I'm ready to eat again, versus a like more whole foods. I'm pretty satiated for 2-3 hours, maybe even more.
Yeah. Yep. So you have to ask yourself, like, what are you, an overeater or an undereater? I think we get a good mix in our program. Some guys are like, like, well, you would assume, oh, well, they're fat, they're overweight, so they're overeater. To a certain extent, which I'm not going to get too far into, yes, but like they're also undereat. They overeat, but they overeat the wrong things and they undereat the wrong things. So for me, I just stick to a lot of volume. And when your training goes up, you will be hungry. And like you said, you could drink a protein shake with like, even if you put like peanut butter and some stuff like that, it's mostly liquid. I've had protein shakes that are 700-800 calories. I'm hungry 2 hours later. Like if I would have ate like steak and freaking potatoes and like some veggies, dude, I'd have been full like for 5 hours, right? And maybe it was only 600 calories. So that's a big thing right there. And then increased water intake. And I'm just touching on two main things. If you guys want more in-depth training, I don't mind doing another one on this, but some of these are like 40 minutes and it's a long time to sit on a training floor. But really with nutrition, it's super basic, guys. Higher protein, increase your protein. If you're not here, make sure you're here. Eat whole foods. We actually have a metabolism guide that has like whole foods. I've done trainings on this before where it's a whole list. So you can comment metabolism guide and I'll send it to you for free. Nothing, no strings attached. So you guys have some foods to go off of. And then really you need to be training in the hypertrophy range, probably in 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps. You do need to be in some type of, you can be in a maintenance, but probably you're going to want to be in some type of bulk. You can even do a 300 calorie increase. You don't need to do a 500 calorie increase, but you got to put those calories to work, right? Which means more volume, more reps, more sets, or slow it down, right? Because you could still do 3 sets of 12, but what if you made the reps twice as long, like super slow curls? Like just that could build muscle more. I think you should do all 3 of these things. Should you go from 3 sets to 5 reps? That's a big increase. Maybe you do 4 and you see how your body feels, right? You don't want to get injuries. You don't want to, you wreck it. This would be the extreme. But just to kind of show you guys. So again, you can gain muscle and strength without gaining body fat. And in fact, in our program, we've seen people do the best version, which is lose body fat and gain muscle. And if you're like a newbie in the gym, you have newbie gains, and that's usually where you see it in the first, like for sure the first year, sometimes within the first few years. It doesn't mean you're here all the time, right? Like you're losing body fat and gaining muscle at the same time for the first couple of years consistently. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying within a scan, you could be like, wow, for this last month, I dropped 1% body fat and I gained 2.2 pounds of muscle all the time. Every week in our program, there's people like that. Now, if you've been training for 8 years, really hard. It can happen, but it's super hard if you're natural. Usually you kind of start having to be like, all right, I'm doing a cut or I'm doing a bulk, or kind of, I think what we've both decided is like, I'm just going to do a very, very long term body recomp. Like I'm comfortable with my weight. I'm comfortable with my physique. I know that if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll just look like a little bit better each year. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I really lower my calories is if I'm going to go on a vacation. Otherwise, I maintain like the same amount of calories and I just increase my workouts depending on where I'm at.
Yeah. And you could just do these mini cuts, which is, I think, what you're talking about, right? Like you stay at like a pretty comfortable body fat. And if you wanted to bulk, it's just a super small adjustment if you wanted to. But you're like me, like I probably stay at like 10 or 11% body fat. And then if I really wanted to, like, hey, summer's coming up or I got this vacation, I can drop to 9%, like 1% or 1.5%, which is pretty visible difference in 30 days or less. And it's not anything super drastic. I might implement like some intermittent fasting, which usually is more than a 500 calorie deficit. But I actually just did a 2-week mini cut where I looked, okay, some of it's water, some of it's fat, but like looked way shredded. You're like, wow, you dropped like 2% body fat. And then I could just go back. And so you can use those tools. And that's part of the reason that I really don't like to gain a lot of body fat. I know some people are like, let's see how fat I can get on this bulk. I just don't have a desire to do that. I don't want to have to buy new clothes. I don't want that feeling. And I don't feel like I need to be that big. And I talk to so many men that say, I don't want to really be like a bodybuilder. I don't need to be like super big. I just want to look like kind of lean and athletic. And yeah, I know. Why do you think I go for the physique that I go for? And a lot of our clients. So I probably wouldn't suggest doing some like dirty bulk, like this huge aggressive bulk. I think you would be way happier being leaner and not as big. And I know that too, because I know you have, and I have trained tons of guys that are like pretty muscly, but they have like a big dad bod. Like, you know, they're big dudes, they're muscly, they're used to play sports, they're strong, but like they don't want to take their shirt off at the pool.
Yeah.
And, you know, as like if you were 20 pounds lighter, not as muscly, but you had a couple abs, you'd feel 100 times more confident, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people get this misconception too, is like they see the body change and someone gets shredded and they look bigger. But like you just look, whenever you lose body fat, your body just kind of tapers down. So you look, it's an appearance thing, right? You always look a little bit bigger when you're when you're leaner.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And that, right? Like I can't tell you how many cuts I've done. And then I like lose 6 pounds and people are like, are you bulking? All the time because you look bigger, right? And that's the kind of the weird thing. But like the same thing, people look at me usually with my physique and they're like, you're at least 190. I'm like 170, bro.
Yeah. I always look bigger in photos when I'm leaner and like with less body fat or when lower weight. So I'm like,
and generally you feel better. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you start bulking, you can feel like sluggish. You feel unathletic, right? You don't feel like on point and agile. If you cut too much, you could feel lethargic and crappy too, but there is kind of like a perfect endpoint. So hopefully this training helped. We're doing these every week, guys. If you have specific questions, also these trainings are so you can comment and you can kind of engage with us or ask follow-up questions on social media through whatever you're watching this on, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Ryan, for jumping on, and we'll talk to you guys next week.